For 60 days, investigators searched the water for Lynette Hooker. Then they stopped looking at the water and started looking at the boat. Federal investigators went back to the Bahamas this week. They put divers in the Sea of Abaco. They brought cadaver dogs to search the shore. And on Thursday, June 4th, 60 days after Lynette Hooker disappeared, they took the dinghy, the 8-foot vessel Brian Hooker says his wife bounced off of, the boat at the center of every account he has given since April. An investigator from the Coast Guard Investigative Service climbed aboard and began surveying it, and he was holding something, a life jacket. He held it up, he examined it. The dinghy was loaded onto a truck and taken into federal custody. But before any of that happened, before the dinghy, before the divers, investigators arrived at the Abaco Inn in Hopetown, Bahamas. They did not come alone. They brought someone with them. Her name is Maggie. Brian Hooker has been talking about that dinghy since the very first day. Now investigators have it. This is not a search update. This is an evidence documentary. The question this video answers: why would federal investigators wait 60 days before seizing the most central piece of physical evidence in this case? And what do they believe is on it? Subscribe. Let's go through it. From the very first account, Brian Hooker gave Bahamian authorities the dinghy has been the center of everything. He says he and Lynette left Hopetown in that 8-foot vessel on the evening of April 4th, heading towards Soulmate, moored at Aunt Pat's Bay. He says the water was rough. He says Lynette bounced off the dinghy. His word, bounced. He says she went into the water holding the ignition key. The engine died. He was stranded. He says he paddled for 8 to 9 hours through the dark before arriving at Marsh Harbor Boat Yard around 4 a.m. That dinghy is the starting point, the middle, and the ending of every account Brian Hooker has given about the night Lynette disappeared. For 60 days it sat there. Investigators had the Soulmate. They had Brian's phone data. They had the GPS track. They had Lynette's missing diving equipment. They did not have the dinghy. And this week, a U.S. official confirmed to CNN something that changes what investigators may be looking for inside it. The investigation is now examining whether Lynette's death may not have been an accident. If the dinghy is the foundation of Brian's entire account, why did it take 60 days for federal investigators to take it? 60 days is not neglect. You start with what is moving. The Soulmate was sailing, intercepted 40 nautical miles off Melbourne, Florida. Time sensitive. The dinghy was sitting in one place. Once the Soulmate was secured and Quantico was processing its evidence, investigators could turn to the next piece. And evidence preserved in place, undisturbed, tells investigators what happened, not what happened after someone had the chance to clean it. 60 days, and whatever trace material survived on that dinghy and that life jacket, investigators are about to find out. But investigators did not just take the dinghy. Before they took it, they brought Maggie. Her name is Maggie. She is a cadaver dog from the Broward County Sheriff's Office. She arrived at the Abaco Inn in Hopetown, Bahamas on June 3rd, the day before the dinghy was seized. Cadaver dogs are trained to detect one thing: human decomposition, not drugs, not explosives, not living people, the remains of someone who has died. They are deployed when investigators believe a person's body may have been in or near a specific location. A cadaver dog deployment is not routine. It requires resources, international coordination, and a specific reason to believe the dog may find what she is trained to find. Maggie arrived at the Abaco Inn. The Abaco Inn is where Brian and Lynette had dinner on the night of April 4th. It is the last documented location where anyone saw them together before they got into the dinghy. Maggie was deployed on land. She was sniffing the shore, the area where the dinghy would have been tied, the path between the inn and the water. If Lynette's body or any trace of what happened to her was near that shoreline at any point, Maggie is trained to find it. Whether Maggie found anything has not been released. What is confirmed, she was there. She was working. And the investigators who brought her to the last place Lynette was seen alive did not bring her without a reason. The dinghy sat at the inn. Maggie searched the inn. The life jacket was inside the dinghy, and all three are now part of a federal evidence chain. Before we get into what the dinghy could hold after 60 days, and what the investigator holding up that life jacket means, subscribe to Crime Deepcut. When those test results come back, we will be here. An 8-foot dinghy is a small vessel. There is not much space, there is not much to hide, but small spaces hold trace evidence the way large spaces cannot. Every surface that was touched, every material that was compressed, every item that was aboard, it exists in a confined environment. An investigator from the Coast Guard Investigative Service climbed aboard on Thursday morning. He looked around the vessel, and then he held up a life jacket. A life jacket on a dinghy is standard equipment. That is not unusual. But an investigator holding up a life jacket, examining it carefully, turning it, looking at its surface in the middle of a federal investigation that is now examining whether a woman's death may not have been an accident, that is not routine. The life jacket may tell investigators whether Lynette was ever wearing it. If she was wearing it, if her hair, her skin, any trace of her contact is on those straps or that fabric, 60 days has not erased everything. Modern forensic techniques recover trace material from surfaces long after a conventional timeline would have written them off. If she was not wearing it, if the life jacket was on the dinghy but never touched her, that tells investigators something too. The dinghy is in federal custody. The life jacket is in federal custody. Whatever is on them or whatever is no longer on them, investigators will know. But there is something bigger than the dinghy. Something that changed the entire frame of this investigation this week. On June 4th, the same day the dinghy was seized, a U.S. official confirmed something to CNN that had not been stated publicly before. The investigation is examining whether Lynette Hooker's death may not have been an accident. That sentence needs to be understood for what it is. Not a charge, not an accusation, not a verdict, a framework. The official framework under which this investigation is now operating. For 60 days, this was described publicly as a missing person investigation with a criminal dimension. That means something happened, we do not know what, we are gathering evidence. Examining whether her death may not have been an accident means something different. It means federal investigators have evidence. The GPS track, the soulmate, the dinghy, the DNA collection, the cadaver dog, the dive operation that has led them to the possibility that this was not an accident, and they are building a case around that possibility. The same official told CNN, finding her remains could provide crucial evidence to help determine whether she could have been killed. Not whether she drowned, not whether she survived, whether she could have been killed. Brian Hooker has not been charged with any crime. He has denied wrongdoing at every opportunity. His attorney declined to comment on the new search. And alongside those facts is the official framework of a federal investigation that is examining whether the woman who went out on that dinghy was killed. Everything happening this week connects to what investigators have been assembling since April. The GPS data from Brian's phone showed his device stopped at locations in the Sea of Abaco he never mentioned. Divers went in Thursday morning to search those coordinates, 25 feet deep. The soulmate is in a federal evidence warehouse. Its thermal camera, battery logs, and navigation systems are being processed at Quantico. Maggie searched the shoreline at the Abaco Inn, the last place Lynette was seen. And now the dinghy, the 8-foot vessel at the center of Brian's account, is in federal custody. The life jacket that was inside it is in federal custody. Former FBI Special Agent Nicole Parker told Fox News, "At this point they will leave no stone unturned. The investigators will backtrack into the last known moment that she was seen based on hard evidence. Then they'll move forward from there." The dinghy is the investigators going back to the very beginning, to the last known vessel, the last known moment, the life jacket that was aboard when 2 people went out and 1 came back. Carly Aylesworth spoke to ABC News on Thursday as investigators seized the dinghy. Her words, "She has to be somewhere, so all the help that we could get, it's greatly appreciated. I'm happy they were able to get Brian's location and discover new areas to look. I know they're working very hard." She said her mother has to be somewhere, while divers entered the water Thursday morning, while Maggie searched the shoreline at Hopetown. Lynette's mother, Darlene, sat in Michigan waiting for a phone call she hopes never comes and desperately needs at the same time. That is what this investigation looks like from 800 miles away. No answers, no body, no call that comes from anywhere but a police press release. Just the knowledge that people are in the Bahamas with a cadaver dog and federal divers in the dinghy in custody, and the trust that they are getting closer to finding where Lynette is. Darlene provided her DNA in May so that when divers find her daughter can be identified. She is still waiting for that to matter. The dinghy is in federal custody. Results of the forensic examination have not been released. When anything breaks, Crime Deepcut will be here. Subscribe. This is where the Lynette Hooker investigation stands as of June 4th, 2026. Federal divers are in the Sea of Abaco, searching GPS-identified coordinates 25 feet deep that Brian's device recorded on the night she disappeared. Maggie and her team are on land, working the shore around Hopetown. The 8-foot dinghy is in federal custody. A CGIS investigator was seen examining it, holding up a life jacket from inside the vessel. The soulmate is in a warehouse. Evidence is at Quantico. The investigation is examining whether Lynette Hooker's death may not have been an accident. Brian Hooker has not been charged. He denies wrongdoing. His attorney has not commented on this week's developments. Everything that was circumstantial 60 days ago is being tested against physical reality this week. In the water, on the shore, inside an 8-foot dinghy, and on a life jacket an investigator held up to the light on a Thursday morning in the Bahamas. Lynette Hooker is 55 years old, from Onstead, Michigan. She built 12 years of life on the water she is now in, and the dinghy she was last seen on, the vessel Brian Hooker built his entire account around from the very first night. That dinghy is now in the hands of federal investigators who believe her death may not have been an accident. Brian Hooker has been talking about that dinghy since the very first day. Now investigators have it. And 60 days may have been exactly long enough for the evidence to tell them what they needed to know. Crime Deepcut stays on this case. We will be here.